Spinning. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Trish Jenkins here. Welcome to Trish TV, where we talk about resilience and we get to meet amazing people who have great stories of resilience and the things that help them through it that we can learn from. And today I'm super duper excited that we have got Ari Schonbrun here, and he is in fact a 9/11 Twin Towers survivor. It's a fascinating story. I can't wait to get into details with it. And we are going to meet Ari right after this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. Welcome back, Ari Schonbrun. What a thrill to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Australia. It's like I've made it.
You have. You're looking into the future. It's tomorrow. It's Thursday here. Wow. And it's just great to be able to connect with you, and we met through both of us being speakers. We happened to cross paths through another group, and we're both thrilled to meet each other because we've both been through very dark times, very different, but how people react in adversity and in threatening situations, everybody reacts differently, but there are some commonalities. And that's why I was so fascinated by your story, Ari. Thank you for agreeing to talk with us. And I'd love to start by, and by the way, if you're watching, feel free to comment and like and share the page with your friends on Facebook or wherever you're watching, whether it be on YouTube or LinkedIn. So let people know to jump on. And feel free to make a comment in the comment section. I will see it in my side panel here, and I'll be able to share it on the screen. So that'd be great. Give Ari some encouragement, because it's not easy to share a story that's really hard, but he's been doing it. And I don't just want to hear the story. We're going to go into a little bit more about what it was really like and how he felt and the things that lifted him up, because we hear heroic stories, but we don't always get what's really gone on in them. And Ari has been so gracious and brave and saying, yep, Trish, you can ask me anything. And I'm like, wow. So we'll see how we go with that. And so Ari, wow, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be working where you were.
Sure. And before I even go into that, Trish, I am so excited that you actually asked me to come and be on your show. And from the first time that we met, it was like, I knew there was this commonality between us, and I was very, very excited, when we got to talking and comparing stories and notes and the like. And I'm so happy that we've maintained that friendship, and that friendship has really, really grown. And I'm so happy about it. And hopefully one day we will see each other in person. And not over Zoom and the like. Either I'll come to Australia or you'll come here, or we'll meet somewhere in the middle. But hopefully that day will come soon. Now, as far as my story goes, I'm a Wall Street guy. I started my career back in 1981. Started working for a bank. Put my 10 years in at the bank. Went to a commodity trading house for a couple of years, and then from there I went to Cantor Fitzgerald. It was I knew the CEO of the company, and I was at a crossroads at the time, and he offered me a position, and I liked the what he was doing, and I accepted, and I worked there for the better part of 23 years, and I left about 4 years ago. Just to pursue full-time my speaking career and my podcast and my academy and the like. But within that 23 years, obviously 9/11 happened. And, look, everybody knows Cantor Fitzgerald. All right. We got hit the hardest. We occupied the top 5 floors of Tower 1. We lost 658 employees out of 960. We lost 658.
Wow.
It was tough. It was very, very tough.
So here you were. You're a banking guy. You're an ordinary person. Well, you're talented and good at your job, but
I'm an ordinary person. You had it right the first
You're an
time.
everyday person minding your own business, doing your career in finance, in banking, normal, strong industry. You go to work every day. You love your family. You do your thing. And so, you could be any one of us. Any one of us could have been you going to our regular Joe jobs.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it was something that I never expected, obviously, but it turned my life around. It changed it. My whole life changed. All right. You can't go through something like that without having, without a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
It was, and it was funny because the reality is I should have been at my desk at 8:00 in the morning because I was there at 8:00 in the morning. I was there at 8:00 in the morning every day.
So tell me
but
your
on
morning routine. Tell me, because it was morning, which it was late at night where we are in Australia.
Right.
So your
My
morning,
morning
you catch
routine
the
was
bus.
very simple. My morning routine was very simple. I got up in the morning at 5:30. I go to services. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I go to services in the morning, and then I leave my house around. I was leaving my house around, call it 6:30, 6:45, something like that. And I used to get to the World Trade Center at about 8:00. All right, it was an hour and change. The ride was an hour and change with the subway and the railroad, etc. And on this particular day, it was the beginning of September. It was right before the high holy days were coming up on us. My wife was a school principal, and she had just opened school. She's a principal in a private school, in a yeshiva, girls' yeshiva. And she had just opened school, and she was like super busy, besides getting ready with the holidays, the cooking and the meals and everything else, and keeping the house in order. We had 4 kids. It was lively. But on that particular day, as I was walking out the door, my wife yelled down to me, and she said to me, "Did you do Baruch's book order?" Now, when I tell my story, I get a lot of chuckles out of this because I don't know if they have it in Australia, scholastic book orders.
Right.
But in the States, they have the scholastic book order, which is the teacher hands out these pamphlets, which has a list of books and games on it. Sure. And the kid's supposed to put, right? You know that story, right?
Yeah.
Well, my kid was no different than any other 8-year-old. He was 8 years old at the time. And he wanted like every game and all, 100 books, which he was never going to read. And my wife didn't want to deal with him. So she said to me, it's your job. You need to deal with it. And I said, okay, I will. Now, I was supposed to do it the night before, but the reality is that I was getting home very late because the holidays were coming up in the middle of the week, and I was going to be out of work. I was going to not be at work for the next, over the next 4 weeks. I was going to be working like 2.5 days a week. So I needed to get in as early as I could to get my work so I shouldn't fall too far behind. And so I was supposed to do it with him, but I didn't. And she said to me, "You're not leaving the house until you do that book order with him." So I went, put my briefcase down, put my cup of coffee down, walked into my kitchen, and I proceeded to negotiate with my 8-year-old for the next 20 minutes. Interestingly enough, I whittled him down to 2 books. And interestingly enough, the 2 books were from a series called Survivor. True story. When the books came like 2 weeks later, I had a shiver down my spine. Unreal.
Wow.
So because of that, I wound up running very late, and I didn't get to the Trade Center until 20 minutes to 9.
Wow. You were late. Oh, we've got Sharon Merrill on. She's watching us. Hi, Sharon. Wow. Yeah. Wow. All right. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
As now, here's the kicker. You ready for this? The book
Okay.
order was due on Monday, but my son left his pamphlet in school on Friday. If he would have brought that pamphlet home on Friday, I would have done the book order with him on Sunday, right? Day off. I would have done with him on Sunday, and I would have been sitting at my desk on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. And
Right.
right now, you'd be interviewing somebody else because somebody else would be standing here telling you a different story because I'd be dead. But because he left that pamphlet in school on Friday, I'm here to talk to you today.
Whoa.
You think God was smiling upon me that day? I think
It's,
so.
and we can be grumbling and complaining in a moment where we're getting delayed, but we don't know whether that delay, what that has.
100%.
My
100%.
goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So when I got to the building at 20 to 9, my office was on the 101st floor. But you couldn't take an elevator all the way up to 101. You took an express to 78, and the 78th floor was a sky lobby. And then you change on the 78th floor for the elevators to take you up to the higher floors. I was
Okay.
literally in between those elevators
No.
and the first plane hit.
Heck.
15 seconds earlier or later, you'd be talking to somebody else because I'd be dead.
Hold on. I just need to. I just needed to absorb that. Wow. Wow. Just as Sharon's saying, amazing how all those events aligned for you to survive that day.
Sharon, you're 100% right. You're
Goodness me.
100% right.
My goodness. Wow.
Yeah. So when I was on the 78th floor, in between the elevators, when the plane hit, it was, I tell you, I thought a bomb had gone off in the elevator. That's what I thought.
Jeez.
That's the way I felt. The entire building shook. The lights went out, the place filled with smoke, and I was literally thrown off my feet. I was on the floor,
Whoa.
literally.
And how many people were around you in that 78th floor? So that's like
On the
that
78th
foyer
floor,
area?
I don't remember at the time when it happened. I don't remember how many people were actually around me. But I bumped into a coworker of mine, Virginia, who was on the elevator that I was about to get on when the plane hit to go up to 101. She was a car, and she suffered third-degree burns because, as she explained it to me, she was in the elevator, the doors started to close, and they jammed when the plane hit. And
Oh,
because of the impact, the walls in the elevator collapsed, the ceiling collapsed. There was a cable in the ceiling that snapped and was sparking in the elevator. The jet fuel came down the sides of the elevator, was ignited by the spark, and there was a wall of fire.
oh my goodness. And she got burned.
She
Oh,
jumped through the fire to get out, and she suffered third-degree burns.
wow.
And, there were three people in the elevator. There was Virginia, Roy Bell, and Renee. Roy Bell was the first one to jump out. He suffered second-degree burns. Virginia jumped after him, and she suffered third-degree burns. And Renee, who was the last one out, she died because of her
Oh,
burns. So when I saw her in the hallway, she said to me, "Ari, thank God, please help me. I'm in so much pain. And whatever you do, please don't leave me." And I said to her, "Virginia, I promise I will not leave you. We will get out of here." Now, here's the irony. Virginia and I were not good friends.
oh, really?
Oh, really? She was hired the year before by Cantor as an internal auditor. The
Mm.
first department she audited was mine, and she almost got me fired.
Whoa.
And there we were on that day, she and I. I'll be honest, it was a decision that I needed to make. I could have said, "The heck with you, lady. I'm going to find my own way out and I'm gone." But, that's not who I am. And I know that's not who you are.
No.
We're different. We're different types of people. Where I said to her, our past did not matter. She was another human being, and she was in trouble, and I was the guy that God put there. And it was literally, when I look back, I said, that was a test. And you said to me, what are you going to do? And I did the only thing I knew, and that was to help her. And we went down 78 flights of stairs. We walked down
78.
78 flights of stairs.
And where were the other two people?
So one of them was with us. In other words, there's a whole lot more to the story, but there just isn't time.
Okay.
But there were four main characters in this scenario here. There was the fire warden, who I didn't talk about, really not important, but he went first. Then Roy Bell was one of the guys on the elevator who jumped through first. He was with us. There was me, and there was Virginia, and we walked down like as a group. Now there were about 6 or 8 other people that went with us. All right, that were there with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we started to head down. We headed down, and it was a day of miracles for me. It was a lot of bad stuff happened, but for me, it was a day of miracles. And I say one of the biggest miracles happened to me when I was in the stairwell. We started on 78. We got down 3 flights to the 75th floor. And when we got down to the 75th floor, my cell phone rang. And you have to remember something. In the towers, you could never, ever get reception on your cell phone, on your mobile. You couldn't. It was impossible. I remember standing up. I remember being in my office with my, next to the window going, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You know what I'm saying? They never got. And here I was in the middle of a stairwell, in the middle of the building, on a day where there was no mobile service, and my phone rang. I picked it up. I was so shocked. I went, hello? It was my wife on the other end of that phone. And she was crying, and she was telling me something about a plane going into the building. I had no idea what she was talking about. I said to her, Joyce, I'm on the 75th floor. I'm in a stairwell. I'm on my way down. Now is not a good time. I said, I'll call you when I get out of the building. And
now is not a good time. Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, at least she heard your voice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And Sharon's just asking, was the stairwell smoke filled as well? Had that come down or not?
By the time we started heading down, because we didn't run down right away. There was a period of time there that we were, trying to figure out where to go and how to go.
Sure.
By that time, the smoke had started to dissipate, certainly in the stairwell. Okay, because remember, the doors were closed. There was, it wasn't like an open
You
area.
wouldn't have known it was a terrorist attack. You would have just thought
we did not know.
An accident.
We did not know. When my wife told me something about a plane going into the building, my feeling was, remember, I was on the 101st floor of my office, and I used to look out my window, and I used to see these little airplanes flying below us. These little Piper Cubs, these small little airplanes.
Sure.
That's what we thought went into the building. We thought it was an accident. Some little plane went in, and that was that. It wasn't until we got out of the building that I found out that it was a terrorist attack.
Wow. That's incredible. Just incredible. Goodness me. So you're heading down. That would have been a really difficult job, heading down all those floors with somebody who was badly hurt.
Let me tell you something. When we got to the 50th floor, Virginia said to me, Ari, I can't go on. And, my first instinct was, I'm going to have her sit down, rest a little bit, and then we'll move on. And then I said, you know what? If she sits down, she may never get up. And if she doesn't get up, she's definitely going to die. And I went like, well, that's not on my agenda for the day. So I said, no, Virginia, you can do this. And there were a couple of people with us, and we had bottles of Poland spring water. So we gave her to drink, and we poured it on her arms to try and give her relief from the burns. And now I'm coaching. I'm counting the floors down, as we go. All right, 48, 46, 45, 42. You're doing great. You're doing great. And we were doing great until 38. When we hit the 38th floor, it was backed up with people. What happened was the firefighters had stopped the people from going down because they were coming up. So they put a hold. They put a hold on us, right? And I remember thinking to myself, this is not good. We need to keep going. So I started to yell out, is there a paramedic in the building? I said, I've got a burn victim here. If you're a paramedic, we need help. If not, please step to the right and let us through. And people did. They squeezed over as much as possible. to literally open a path so that we can continue going down.
Wow. People are
We
great.
got out of the building, and I stopped the cop to ask him where to have a burn victim, because everybody was running. Everybody was they were running uptown. Everybody was it was mayhem. And I said, I got a burn victim. Where do we go? He goes, go across the street in front of the Millennium Hotel. There's going to be a triage center there. There's going to be ambulances there. Take her there. And I did. I took her there. An ambulance pulls up. We get her into the ambulance. I breathe a sigh of relief, because up until now, the only thing I was doing was keeping her spirits up, but I couldn't help her medically, right? So now finally she's getting medical attention. I'm going like, thank God. I turn around. I looked up at the building. There was a guy standing next to me, and I said to him, how did building 2 get on fire? The guy looks at me like I'm crazy. He says, what are you talking about? 2 jetliners went into the buildings. They're calling it a terrorist attack. I'm looking at him like he's crazy. I'm going like, what are you talking about? Terrorist attack. That's when I found out it was a terrorist attack. Now, here's the kicker. All right. They didn't let the ambulance leave until they filled it up. In other words, once Virginia was in there, I thought they were going to leave, and they weren't leaving. They put like 6 or 7 people into the ambulance because they were expecting a huge amount of casualties.
Yeah.
When the ambulance was ready to roll, I said, all right, Virginia, your mom's going to meet you there. She goes, Ari, you're coming with us.
Oh.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave the scene. I'm still looking for friends and coworkers. I'm looking to help.
Oh.
I didn't really want to go. She turned to the ambulance driver. She says, we're not leaving unless he comes with us.
Okay.
So he looked at me. I looked at him, and he goes, hop into the front. I got into the front of that ambulance, and we pulled away. We were one of only a few ambulances that actually got away from the scene that day.
Is that because they were all blocked in from?
Because the buildings collapsed.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh my
We
goodness.
got away before the buildings collapsed.
Oh,
she
heck.
thanks me. She thanks me every single day for saving her life. And I say to her, you got it all wrong. Who saved whose life? If she wouldn't have insisted that I get into that ambulance, I would have been standing at the base of that building when it came down, and I'd be dead. There's no doubt in my mind.
Wow.
But she insisted. And that's why I'm here today, to tell you a story.
That's I just need to pause and take
Breathe.
that in. That's just incredible. Just incredible, because all we could only see what the news footage was showing, and it was the middle of the night here, so we didn't really, we kind of didn't really know what was going on until well into it. And my goodness, just the serendipity of it,
without a doubt.
And I believe that there's something about being focused on helping someone else that takes the brain away from worrying about self. There's a bit of self-preservation in it, but when you're about helping someone else, there's less focus on your own trauma, which I think can be a good thing, because it helps you to think clearly and to function. Whereas when you're on your own, it's a bit harder, I think, to think about yourself.
I agree with you 100%. When you're by yourself, then, you've got all kinds of doubts creeping into your mind. But when you're responsible for another human being, all right, you better be there. You better be there 100%. And the reality is, Trish, that, I was just a normal guy, all right, doing normal things, all right. But I happened to be put in a situation where nobody was stepping up. There was no leadership. There was no leader. There was nobody to take charge, nothing. And I went like, you know what? We got to do something. And nobody else was doing it, so I did it. Not that I'm such a great guy or this hero or anything else, because I'm not a hero. I just did something. You know what they say a hero is? An ordinary person doing extraordinary things. Now, I don't think what I did was extraordinary, but the reality is somebody needed to take charge, and nobody was doing it, so I did it. That's all. That's all there is to it.
The human spirit is such an incredible thing. And it's you step up when you're the person who has to step up. And it reminds me a little of, when I first moved out of home, I used to rely on my parents to do things like set the mouse traps, and like they were the ones taking care of me. And then I moved in with a girlfriend who had a little child, and suddenly I was the one setting the mouse traps and figuratively, actually,
Right, yeah.
and
Yeah.
in real life. But it's like you're in a situation where you're the one who just has to do it, and that tells me that every person has it in them to step up, and we can fall into these roles of I need looking after, or we can be the one, well, we've got to make the best of it. What now?
Right.
And I mean, I don't know how I would have reacted in the situation. I'd like to think I would be heroic. I don't know. I've been in different situations where I've had to, forgive, like that lady that I love the irony of it, that this is someone that you didn't get along with, didn't like, had given you a hard time, and she's the very one that
Who needed my help.
you were put with.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And while I haven't been in that situation.
Trish, you know what they say, all right? Truth is stranger than fiction.
It is, and there's almost like a divine interference there, like a
right.
Like almost
if you would write my story as a script, people would go, that's so far-fetched. But it wasn't,
But it wasn't. And you're here to tell it. And I love that you tell it. I love that you're able to, and in fact, let's go there. So you went to the hot, and all of these things had gone on. Now, you could have looked back and exhaled and broken in pieces and had a nervous breakdown, and there's no shame if you had. But you had a way of coping. You were telling me about this earlier. Talk to me about the aftermath and what you, perhaps in the immediate aftermath, you're embracing your family and you're like, oh my goodness. What was that emotional state like then, and then how you moved forward in that? Was that hard? Were you angry? Did you have fits of whatever, or what happened there?
That's a great question. I'm happy you asked me that question. I got home that day at 5:30 in the afternoon. It was a long day, right? Remember, I got to the building at 20 to 9. I got home at 5:30 in the afternoon. There were 20 people in my living room, neighbors, friends, and I had no less than 100 phone messages. People just called because, everybody knew. Yeah. All right. And I learned something that day, very important. You have no idea how many friends you really have until they all think you're dead.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
But look, I was alive. I came in, I hugged and kissed my wife, and everybody was, wanted to hear the story, etc. By the time everybody left and whatnot, it was like 11:30 at night. And my wife looked at me and she said to me, now that everybody's gone, I have a very serious question to ask. I said, what is it? She goes, are you getting paid on Friday? I was like, I don't know. She goes, do you need to look for a new job?
Well, there is that.
I don't know. But those were like my wife's initial reaction after the, everything calmed down, and legitimate questions.
It is.
Now, what people don't realize is I didn't sleep for a month after that.
Okay.
I didn't sleep for a month. I was living on Ambien, and I was super, super paranoid. Okay. When I used to leave during that first month, and literally it was for a month.
Okay.
When I would go outside, when I would go to work, right, I would open my door, right, I would look up and down the street to see if there was anybody there, if there was anybody suspicious looking, whatever. And once I thought it was clear, then I would walk out of the house.
And that wouldn't have been helped by because I remember and we're here in Australia, or the headlines were that America is at war, more or less. That
Right.
it was that people, you're in a city that you would have imagined that you were literally under attack.
Right.
Is that why you were
Yeah.
sort of thinking,
Yeah.
are we
You know what?
at war? Is the enemy coming?
I thought, I'm going to tell you something. There was a lot more to the story, but I literally thought at one point during the course of the day that something specific happened. And I thought in my mind, they missed me at the Trade Center because I made it out. They're going to get me over here.
Wow.
That is literally what was going through my mind. I was so paranoid. When I tell you I was paranoid, and you know what? My wife was twice as paranoid as I was. That night, 3:30 in the morning, all right, which didn't bother me because I wasn't sleepy anyway. My phone rang. And my wife says, "Don't answer it. It could be terrorists."
Wow, that's incredible. That's so, and you know, you weren't alone. It was so many people, and we have, you know, Diane sharing. She remembers where she was, and she had helped plan the memorial. She'd said, and
Wow.
no one will forget that moment.
No.
So it's just incredible because it wasn't that long ago. And if you were living in that city, I hadn't really thought about how everybody would feel every day, feeling like, you know, we're under attack.
For sure.
We were kind
For
of
sure.
observing from our end of the planet and thinking, well, we're in an alliance with the US, so I guess that means we'll have to go to war too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my goodness,
I'll never
right.
forget. My phone rang at 3:30 in the morning. My wife thought it was terrorists. I said, "Joyce, it's not terrorists." I picked up the phone, and it turns out it was some guy from an Israeli radio station who called me to ask if I spoke Hebrew, which I do, and wanted to know if he can interview me. He heard that I survived 9/11, and I said to him, first of all, it's 3:30 in the morning. He goes, "I know, I'll call you back. You know, can I call you back at like 6:30?" I go, "No, I go to services. If you want, call me back at 5:30 and I'll do the interview." He said, "Okay." I said, "How did you get my number?" He goes, "Oh, I work with somebody who's very friendly with your mom, and she gave us the number."
Oh.
Wait. So I hung up the
Mom.
phone with him. I hung up the phone with him because my mom lives in Israel. I hung up the phone with him, and I called my mom in Israel, and I said, "Ma, did you give some radio guy my phone number?" She goes, "Yeah, Sheila Harris's son works with, came home and asked her if I knew anybody, if she knew anybody who was at the towers." And I told her, "I don't, but why don't you call Sarah Schonbrun? Her son, I think, works there." And he did, and she gave my number. I said, "Ma," she says, "Yeah, but I told him not to call you now because it's 3:30 in the morning. You know, he should wait." And I said to her, "Ma, the guy's sitting on the story of the century. Did you really think he wasn't going to pick up the phone and call me right then and there?" Well, I told him not to.
Oh, there you go. And it was such a frightening time because, as Diane, there was the plane crash into the Pentagon around the same time as well.
Yeah,
So
everything happened.
All in the one day.
Everything happened not only in the one day. Everything happened within. You have to remember something. The hijackers hijacked 4 planes. Every single one of them was going to the West Coast.
Ooh.
Okay, every one of them was going to the West Coast. So why do they pick those planes? Because they had the most jet fuel.
Right.
That's why. Right. So, and all of them left early in the morning. So they all left around the same time. So everything happened around the same time. You know, first the one plane went into the tower, then the second plane went into the tower, 15 minutes apart. Then the Pentagon was hit, and then the plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But everything happened within a couple of hours. I mean, it wasn't over a course of a day. It was over the course of a couple of hours.
It is, and they plan it like that so that when one starts, then when the emergency workers turn up, they do something else to catch them as well. I mean, it was just wicked, just demonic, really. And as Diane said, never forget. And you do have tributes to firefighters and police, and Yeah, bless you, and keep telling your story. And not just that, there's the firefighters and the police, and then there's ordinary people like yourself who do something extraordinary. And it's the human spirit is just incredible, and it's so good. Just let's see, we had, and there was apparently one over in Cleveland as well. Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, there's just, my goodness, so much that goes on, and we kind of feel like there's nothing else that happens, but there's all sorts of things that happen all over the country that take people by surprise and cause trauma. Whether you have school shootings and all that sort of thing, and there's always someone, there's people like yourself who are there picking someone up off the ground and getting them to safety. And it is, I mean, it's tragic that those things happen, but it is inspiring that the human spirit is such that there are people who now you've got those people, you've got the other side of people who will just go along and pick the pockets of the dead. And it's just like, oh my goodness. But it's good to remember that most people most of the time will rise up to the challenge and do the decent thing.
The thing that saddens me the most is I remember what the 6 months afterwards was like in the US. All right.
Yeah.
We were a united nation.
Yeah.
It was, everybody was, it was all for one and one for all. It was, we were the flags were flying and everybody was nice. And, we were a united nation. Okay. And, I look around today and I say, oh, how far have we sunk where, we're so divided, left, right, center, everybody, black, white. I mean, it's so disheartening. And you know what? If people would only remember what it was like, back then, if they could just, picture it in your minds and remember what was going on at the time and how we came together. All right. I always hope that there is hope for this country and the world at large. I firmly believe that there is hope. All right. But the people have to step up, and the people in charge have to step up, and they have to say, enough with the fighting, enough with it. We need to come together and not just talk the talk. They got to walk the walk. Yeah. Right. It's very easy to say, oh, we got to be united. Yeah. But you know what? Start doing something that shows that we're on the right path. I pray, look, I pray. Like I said, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I go to services 3 times a day. I pray to God every day. And I said, please make it better. I'm trying to do my part. All right. It's like, I got to deal with him. I said, God, I'm going to do my part. You do your part. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're right. You're right. And I'm a faith person too, as you know. And I often pray along those lines. And I think one of the things that I learned when I was in prison and I was with these people who were so difficult and their behavior was so, often quite really awful. And yet I was wearing, we see there's us and there's them. We have there's us who are our demographic, and then there's them, who are the bad guys, or they're just that other demographic that we don't get along with. And it depersonalizes them, it dehumanizes them. And I found I looked around, I looked down, I'm in the same uniform. Suddenly I was them. And so I had to see differently. And one of the things I did in my faith walk was I said, God, show me how to see this and how to see them. And I started to see past the exterior and see the person and the heart that was there, the hurting. Aggression is based in fear. It's all fear. And if you can see past that, you can connect with someone. And I love what you've said about, we've got to stop having all this stuff going on and connect with one another like you would have like 20 years ago, with that 6-month period where people looked past their own busyness and they see each other, and they would hug strangers in the street. Now, probably a little weird to go and hug strangers in the street these days, but to really see and connect. And I guess that's why you and I had this bond. Now, what I went through was nothing compared to you, although we can't really compare adversities necessarily, but we've both had that eye-opening experience of seeing each other and seeing that connection and the humanity. And it's just such a powerful thing. My goodness, Ari. And then so as that period of time went on and you got less jumpy, presumably, and you were invited to tell your story a few weeks later. It was very soon that you told your story. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, it was very soon afterwards. What happened was, my friends, I told my friends my story, whatever, and one of my friends came over to me and said to me that her son's high school was having their annual dinner. And they were the theme was going to be 9/11, and they were going to have a panel. They were going to have a panel of people. One was going to be the head of there was a volunteer ambulance corps that showed up there, and there was an American Airlines pilot, and then they wanted me to round out the panel. And that dinner was November 3rd. All right, so September 11th happened on September 11th, and then November 3rd they had the dinner, and it was originally supposed to be just like Q&A with the audience, but it turned out that each one of us had to speak for like 15 minutes. So I spoke for about, and I went last, which was really difficult because these other two guys had such great stories, and I didn't think my story was that great. But that was the first time that I told my story in a public forum. And it obviously had an effect on some people because the dean of the school called me the next day and asked me if I would come to give my talk to the school, to the kids. And, I absolutely did it. It was a neighborhood school, so I absolutely did it. And then about 2 weeks after that, I get a phone call from some woman who says to me, my name is so-and-so, and I work for an organization called ECHO. And we're having our annual tea. We'd like you to come and speak. And I'm going like, who are you? What is ECHO? And how'd you get my number? And she said, my son was in the school where you spoke, and one of the kids taped the talk, and he played it for me. And when I heard the tape, she said, I picked up the phone, I called you. And that was the beginning, and that's how it started. We talked a little bit before the show. We talked about, therapy and the like. And I mentioned to you, I never went to therapy. I didn't talk to anybody. I don't know if I suffer from PTSD or not. But what I do know is, as I started telling my story more and more, it started to sink in, the magnitude of what had happened. All right. Because I firmly believe that I was probably in shock when it first happened. All right. And I didn't realize. But as time wore on and it wore off, then I realized the magnitude of what had happened. All right. And it was really therapeutic for me to tell my story. And so the more I told my story, the better I felt. The more that I inspired people, the more I was inspired. I did the following year, I did a speaking tour in the UK, and I spent a week in the UK, and I spoke in 15 venues over the course of a week.
Wow.
And the guy who brought me over there said, what did you think? How was it? Whatever. I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I got more out of this week than any audience I spoke to. And he said to me, you have no idea the impact that you had on the people that you spoke to. It was incredible.
Look, I found the same thing with speaking. When I would share my story and people appreciated it, there was healing in it for me. Not that you do your therapy on a platform and bleed in front of everyone, but I think, people listening and watching, and you've been through things, sure, you don't necessarily have to become a professional speaker and go around telling everyone, but there's healing in sharing. If you bottle it up, if you squash it down, pretend it never happened, it will spurt out in different ways, and it might spurt out in ways that are not helpful, in anger, in alcoholism, your mind needs to process and it needs to cope. And if you don't want to, I didn't want to burden my family with telling them the horrible things, certain things that I had gone through while incarcerated, but there were other people, and sometimes I chose the wrong people to share with, and it really didn't go well. You've got to be wise who you share with, but I want to encourage you, if something's happened to you, you've been through something, talk to your fellas. I know you don't like talking about your feelies, but you've got to get with your mates and share, what you've been through, because I bet if they'd been through something and they needed to talk, I bet you would be there for them. So be a good friend to yourself and talk to someone, get some help. Don't talk to the people who want to compete with you for tragedy and they want to outdo you. Like when women sit around talking about birth stories, it's almost like a competition. Oh, dear God, save us from that. Get some help if you need it, because your family needs you. Everybody needs you back, and there's value in it. You've got gifts inside you, just as Ari has, the gift inside him. The tragedy, my book is called Treasures of Darkness, because treasure is found in the dark places. It's not just lying out on the street. And it's actually, Ari, it's from Isaiah 45:3, that I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that you would know that I, the Lord, am the God of Israel, who calls you by name. He calls us by name. So, this is not a religious program, this one. I do have a YouTube that is for ministry, but, spirituality is part of who we are. And you get whatever help you need to, you find that help. Just as Ari has shared his story. And, thank you so much for it. I just, Diane's saying thank you. And here's a question from Sharon.
Yeah.
What would be the biggest benefit that you got after all that happened, given that it was such an awful experience?
Sure.
It's a good question.
It was a life-changing experience. I remember prior to 9/11, I had a very short fuse. I used to fly off the handle at the drop of a hat.
Okay.
I was a yeller. I was a screamer, at work, and I used to yell at everybody, and things just ticked me off. So, and even at home, it didn't take much to set me off. And after this experience, I went like, hey, life's too short. Life's too short. And I changed. I literally changed. Now, I'm going to tell you something, deep, dark secret, okay? I didn't change overnight, okay? I was the same guy on Wednesday that I was on Tuesday. I just lost 658 friends and coworkers. But it took about 8 months until it really, really set in. And that's why my life changed and stayed changed for the better. Very often you have a life altering experience, right? And right away it's like, I'm going to become a monk, or I'm going to become a priest, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, whatever. And then 2 days later, you're back to where you started from. You know why? Because you wanted to do so much so quickly. It doesn't work that way. It's got to come slowly. And as it comes slowly, it sinks in little by little, and that's how you affect that change.
Beautiful.
All right? I talk about change all the time.
I love that. You do. And while we're here, I would like to share with people what you're currently doing. There are 2 websites. One is for your speaking, and I'd like to bring that up now. So this is Ari Schonbrun's website, which is Ari Schonbrun. Where are we? I want to make sure I'm going to put your website's going across the bottom as well. So you get that spelling, ARISCHONBRUN.com. So this is Ari's speaking website. You can see some videos of interviews there. If you are connected with a group, that has, or an organization or a business that, or a conference organization that would like to have Ari come and speak, he would be totally inspiring. As you know, he is a member of National Speakers Association. So he has got the credibility that, well, he absolutely has anyway. So you can see more videos, him in the news. You can connect with Ari through his contact page and maybe go on his mailing list to be kept informed of what's going on there. And the other one is his Whispers and Bricks podcast. So Ari has got a pod, which he has already interviewed me on. It's called Whispers and Bricks. And Ari, tell us why you called it Whispers and Bricks.
Oh, great. It came about from a story that I heard and that I tell very often at the end of my talk. But the reality is that, you know, they say that God whispers to our minds and he whispers to our hearts. All right. He's constantly there for us. All right. The problem is that very often we ignore those whispers. Either we don't have time to deal with it, we don't think about it, whatever. So every so often, in order to wake us up, he throws a brick at us to wake us up and said, "Hey, dummy, listen." Right? So I tell people, I got hit with the brick on 9/11. Okay. But for most of my audience, they have a choice. They can either listen to the whispers or wait for the bricks. So on my podcast, I talk to people that have had bricks thrown at them and how they managed to overcome those bricks and how they managed to, you know, get back to, or, you know, go on, you know, continue on in life with the issues that they have, realizing, of course, that those issues at the end of the day, there are certainly a lot of other people that have it a lot worse. But it's also very inspiring for the people listening that said, wait, that happened to me too. All right. And if they can get out of it, I can get out of it. You know, and that's why I started Whispers and Bricks, because I just wanted to help people overcome whatever it is. Because you know what? Most people think that they're alone. When something's going on in their life, they think it's only happening to them and they're the only ones in the world that's going through it. And that's wrong. They're not. All right. And that's what my guests, you know, portray. And they tell them, you're not the only one going through this. All right. Trust me. I know, because I'm going through it. And when people see somebody else, you know, they say, you know, there's comfort in numbers, you know, people see others going through it and they get comforted by that. They realize, hey, it's not just me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And I love hearing those stories. They're just so encouraging, and, you know, to connect with people like that. There is one more question here. Diane is asking, are you, I think she means involved with
Tuesday's Children. No, I am not involved with Tuesday's Children. I know the guy who actually started it, but I never got involved. I am involved, if you're interested to know, I am involved with an organization called Strength to Strength.
Okay.
And that is a nonprofit organization that they work with victims of terror globally.
Wow.
It was started by a young lady who was actually on a bus in Jerusalem when a suicide bomber got on the bus and blew himself up like 6 feet from where she was sitting. And everybody else around her died, and she was the only one that survived. And at the end of the day, she started this organization, Strength to Strength, and they work with, like I said, victims of terror around the world. They have special programs for young adults. They have programs for older people. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. I sit on their board. It took her 2 years to convince me, but ultimately, I agreed, and I sit on their board. And we just did a 5K run fundraiser. It's a great, great organization, you know, and that's the organization I'm involved with. So Tuesday's Children, no. Strength to Strength, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's just awesome. Yeah. There's, and it's great. Once again, so many people rise up to create organizations that help, and that's that human spirit.
100%.
work as we are. Ari, it has been so brilliant talking with you. Thank you for being on our show. And once again, I want to encourage people to reach out and have Ari speak at your group. Particularly if it's a conference that's got, like a larger organization that can really make an impact, then that would be great to have Ari along. Subscribe to his Whispers and Bricks. I've signed up for that, and I was pleased and honored to be one of his guests for one of the episodes. So that was great. But Ari, I love your heart, and thank you for your vulnerability and being so honest in sharing your story, but not only your story, but how you felt through it and what it took to be resilient, and the value that you bring to other people. So thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you, everyone. Remember to subscribe and like and share and all those things. And it's just been wonderful to have you.
Trish, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you allowing me to tell my story, to try and inspire other people, halfway around the world. It's amazing. Technology is a wonderful thing. You can inspire people around the world without leaving your desk.
You can. It's been absolutely brilliant. Stick around, Ari, and we will sign off just in a sec. Okay, bye, everybody.